Now, it is absolutely no secret that I thoroughly enjoy Heist. It is one of my favorite mechanics in the game. Now, you may not share that opinion, but most people do understand that Heist is a very straightforward and simple way to make a lot of currency. It is not the most currency that you can possibly make, but the one thing that Heist always has is that it is consistent. Sometimes there'll be some new flames, like some random glacier farming strat that'll take your attention away for a little bit, but eventually, Heist brings you home. But what you may not know about Heist is that there is a strategy that anyone can take advantage of very early on in the league, and this is the endless heist strategy. So even if you don't plan on taking advantage of the full league start build and strategy that I'm going to be detailing in this video, in the first part of it, I'm going to go over a easy strategy to make you a ton of extra currency very early on in the league that you can do before you even finish the campaign. This will give you a little bit of a head start into mapping and should make it significantly easier for you to get further than you ever have before. Before we begin, I just want to give a quick shout out to the sponsor of this video, you, my patrons, over at patreon.com/bigducks. If you want early access or behind the scenes information about the stuff that goes on with me and Path of Exile, make sure to go check out the link down in the description. And if you enjoy this content, make sure to give this video a like, subscribe to the YouTube channel, hit that notification bell to stay up to date with all the latest videos. Without further ado, let's get into it. Now, there are going to be a variety of different sections to this video, lots of different topics to cover, anything from the build that I'm going to be using, how you transition into that build, what kind of farming strategies you're going to use to be able to get there. There is a ton of things in this video. So there are going to be timestamps and chapters so you can jump to any particular section that you might need. However, what I'm sure a lot of you are here for is simply going to be the early league endless heist strategy. So the way that you're going to do this is that when you do hit around, I think it's Act 6, you're going to see Kurai for the first time show up in town. You can speak with her and she will give you access to the Rogue's Harbor. Now, you're not going to do anything with this yet. You can if you want to, but the way that this is going to go is you're going to go all the way up to the point where either you are about to finish Act 10 or you're getting to like level 63, 64. You can do this strategy before you finish the final boss of Act 10 so that you're not losing 30% all resistance, and it will make it significantly easier to do this strategy for a little while. So the way that this works and the whole idea behind the endless heist early game strategy is from our friend here, Wakano. Now, you're going to mainly be focusing on the chance orb ones here, but the idea is that you will be going to Wakano, you will be purchasing a selection of these contracts. I would suggest that probably early on in the league, especially if you're not going to do the in-game high strategy later, that you focus on deception contracts, lock-picking contracts, and perception contracts. Those are the ones that you're mainly going to be using. Now, do keep in mind, you will need to unlock all of the rogues to be able to do all these different kinds of contracts, but the way that you do that is you simply do a contract with each of the rogues and they will introduce you to the next one. So if you're missing a rogue, just try doing a contract that you haven't done before. However, if you're going to be doing the endless heist strategy, you should probably be buying all of the contracts that you can and doing all of them so that you can level up the rogues in preparation for a later step. Now, the way that you're going to do this is you're going to purchase the contracts that you want and you'll simply run them. Now, you might be thinking, well, if I purchase a whole bunch of contracts from this guy, right? Like if you purchase all the contracts here, and then you go and you run all the contracts and you come back to Wakano, he's not going to have anything left for you. So what do you do at that point? Well, if you remember, I said that you should be doing this at level 63, 64. So what this will mean is that you're going to be a few levels under the zone, meaning that you will be getting a significant amount of experience. When you do eventually level up, what you can do is you can go to a vendor, and if I can find the right currency here, you can take an Orb of Scouring as well as a Scroll of Wisdom. You go to pretty much any vendor that will allow you to sell items. The fence is the only one that you can do it here. You sell these two items together and you're going to get something called a Book of Regression. It's going to reduce your character down by 1 level and will reset your experience. However, what happens when you're resetting your level and resetting your experience is that you're going to get new vendor items. So by this process of de-leveling and leveling back up and de-leveling over and over and over again, you will be able to essentially go infinite on these heist contracts that you can buy from Wakano. So you'll hover right around the mid 60s. We're looking at like 63, 64, 65. I wouldn't go up too much higher than that because you do want to be able to level just in the process of running the contracts that he has available for you. If you do level up too high, you're going to have to de-level yourself a decent amount, so just kind of stay in that average zone. So you're going to spend enough time here to accomplish whatever your goals might be. If you are just someone randomly looking for an easier way to get some early league currency, then just do the strategy for a few hours, get as much currency as you need to be able to get some very basic gear for your build, and then jump into the Atlas. By that point, there should probably be more gear available because more people who are more experienced are pushing deeper into the Atlas, and you'll be able to get whatever items that you need. If you're going to be doing my strategy and you're going to be doing the full-on heist, like endless heisting build, I would suggest that you at least level up each of the rogues a decent amount here and get a good amount of currency, because you're going to need it to be able to transition into the build later. So now that you have finished however much heisting you want to do to get all of your currency, you're going to jump back into the campaign, you're going to finish Act 10, and you're just going to jump right into maps and continue as you normally would. Now for the people who are going to be doing the endless heist strategy and then moving into the heist build afterwards, we have a little bit more that we have to do here. So I suggest that when you are going to be leveling this particular build, this is a Pathfinder and it does stay on the right side of the tree for the most part. The closest build to this that you're going to be able to spend the least amount of respec points on is going to be a Poisonous Concoction Pathfinder. Thankfully, this build is very adequate going all the way up through the campaign, as well as in some early maps, because you're going to need to get around level 85 is what you're looking for before you transition into this build full time. Now, at any point, you can do extra heisting, as long as you have access to some contracts, whether you're getting them from like the chests that you're going to see in random maps, or buying them off of TFT or the trade website, getting them from a friend, wherever you're getting these contracts from, you can do them at any given time. However, when you do transition into this full build, you can no longer do any content but heist, as you will do exactly 0 damage. Do keep this in mind, it's very important to know, and I need you to know that if you transition into this full build, you are locked into heist unless you really want to spend like a bajillion regrets to, convert out of it. Now, I have included a very, very basic PoB for Poisonous Concoction Pathfinder down in the description. Don't expect anything crazy with it. This is not meant to be a full League Start guide. It is a PoB meant to only get you like up to around level 85 and then transition into this build. It is not ideal in the sense that it's not going to take all the perfect nodes, because it is going to try to minimize the amount of pain that you have transitioning this build. That being said, you can play pretty much any Pathfinder build that you want. You could honestly play a Raider build or anything else that you want if you do want to transition into this later as well. Some options off the top of my head are going to be something like a Lightning Strike Raider early on could be very good, like an Elemental Helix Deadeye could be okay, a Poison Helix Pathfinder could be okay. There's a few other options, but Poisonous Concoction Pathfinder is the closest to what this build is looking to do. So now that you're up to this point, you might be wondering, well, what is this build? What's the point of this build compared to anything else, right? Well, let me look through the contracts that we've got here. And if we do say this random perception contract here, okay? We're not gonna get anything out of this because, it's a super low level contract, but the whole purpose of this build is to go fast and not die. That is all that this build does. It's the only thing that it cares about. It literally doesn't do anything else. So the idea here is that you are just going to be zooming through every single contract, every single blueprint that you've got, and I'm a little bit rusty because I haven't played this build in a few weeks, but the whole idea here is you're just going to run through, you're going to open all the doors, you're going to grab whatever it is at the end of the contract and run out. That's the whole idea behind this build. It takes out most of the headache that a lot of people have with heisting. It doesn't require anything crazy. We don't do any damage. We literally use Decoy Totem and Frost Wall to be able to prevent monsters from hitting the rogues. Like, if you can see this here, it's literally just Frost Walls protecting her. And that is pretty much the entirety of this build's concept. That's all that it does. It runs fast and it doesn't die. Now, there are some slight changes that are happening to the build that work now but won't work in 3.19. One of the main ones is going to be the way that Chainbreaker works. Instead of running a Vitality in our aura set here, meaning on our life, our arrogance support, we are simply going to be running a Clarity, and we're going to be putting minus mana cost on all of our gear instead of just one piece of it. This is going to make it so that we will have actually more rage regeneration than we did before, and all of our abilities are going to cost a whopping 0 mana. Besides that, you can't use the Votos anymore because you're going to need a helmet with the RMR implicit that you can get from Eldritch currency. You can instead, if you want to, go up here and take these nodes. That is an option if you really want to use the Votos Devotion. I'll probably iterate on that a little bit over time as I am league starting with this, so I may change that, but it is an option. You can swap between the two. Now, one of the main pitfalls that you're going to run into with this build is that there are issues with mana if you don't know what you're doing, especially in 3.19. So as I said previously, you really are going to have to keep an eye on your mana costs. Make sure that you don't level up the abilities too much, particularly Frostwall, if you don't want to be spending rage and spending mana, because you're not going to have any mana regen with the new Chainbreaker. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to get minus mana cost on all of your jewelry, and you're going to want to make sure that now, since we need numeric actual mana regen, to scale our rage regen, you're gonna have to run Clarity. You're going to need to run Clarity, you're going to need to make sure to have the minus mana cost on these, and another thing that you're going to have to worry about is that you're going to have to balance your amount of like flask charges gain and flask effect to make sure that your flasks are going to be lasting infinitely. If you look down here, you'll notice that my flasks are constantly refilling themselves and constantly being activated. There are going to be flasks like this Quicksilver flask here that have the, like, you might notice this from like a Mage Blood setup, where it has like the reduced duration, increased effect, and all of that kind of good stuff on it. You're going to need to get stats on your gear, like things like reduced flash charges, increased flash duration. You're going to need to take a lot of nodes on the tree that are revolving around this. And of course, you're going to need to enchant each of your flasks with used when charges reach full. This is going to allow you to essentially automate all of your flasks, keep them up at all times, and you don't have to think about them. I'm never pressing my flasks. I can keep my hands up like this, and just if you watch the flasks, they're going to constantly replenish themselves and constantly proc. My flasks are always up no matter what I do. I never have to press them a single time. So do be aware, you do scale your resistances, your chaos resistance, and a lot of your effects through these flasks. In particular, you are mainly getting onslaught through this flask. If you are using the Forbidden Flesh, Forbidden Flame that gives you Avatar of the Chase, the way that you're getting onslaught is through this flask. Also, if you're interested in crafting or obtaining any of this gear, the notes for that is going to be in the path of building. So something that I have to explain to you when it comes to very, very early on in the league and making currency is that things are volatile, things change. I'm going to give you the best information that I can, but understand that if you want to be extremely successful early on in the league, you're going to have to adapt to whatever the market is doing. There is a chance that potentially some particular item is going to be super, super sought after and expensive very early on in the league. Whatever it might be. Maybe there's a certain kind of cluster jewel that is really, really sought after. Maybe there's certain bases that people really want. Maybe there's certain divination cards or currency types or anything that people want. These kinds of things change drastically from hour to hour and day to day very early on in the league. So adjust your strategies to whatever the market is doing if you want to be extremely effective. However, I'm going to give you some basics here. Early on in the league, when you are running contracts and blueprints, once you have swapped into the full heist build, one of your main goals should always be trying to get into running blueprints, mainly unusual gems blueprints. However, early on in the league, there can be a lot of replicas that are very, very profitable as well. And not only replicas, but some of the armaments and other things can be relatively worthwhile very early on in the league. There's a lot of people that want like Secrets of Suffering scepters and things like that. So if you're getting any of these blueprints and you have some spare coins, you might just want to run them because you could make a ton of money off of them early on in the league. The same thing is going to go with contracts. Mainly when you're running contracts, you're really going to be wanting to focus on deception contracts because these are the ones that are going to give you Gianna unveils, which you're going to use for the blueprints, and they make the most money in general very early on. But as I said, you could want to run completely different contracts because maybe if you're just trying to make some money through contracts early on, maybe divination cards aren't worth absolutely anything. The change to exalted cards not being worth as much might bring the price of them down. Very early on in the league, you probably want to be using stacked decks anyways, because it's going to be worth more money than people trying to buy them, because no one's really going to be buying stacked decks very early on. You're going to have to do some more basic heisting strategies until you are able to make enough money to transition into the full endgame version of this strategy. Now, if you want more information or you need more basics of heist, I do have a video where I go over the basics of heist. I'm going to link it up in the top right corner now. Watch that video if you need more information on basic heist strategies, how to make money, and how to do heist on basically any character. Now, let's talk about the finalized strategy that you're going to use at the very end game of heist, essentially. This is a strategy that you've built all this currency up, geared the character for, you've gotten everything together, your character is working perfectly, you've built up a ton of currency. I guess it's going to be divines now. That feels very weird to say. But say you've got 10, 20, 30 divines, you're ready to go and you're ready to invest. The whole idea of this strategy is that you're breaking down heist to its absolutely like elementary levels. You are getting in, getting the item, and getting out. This includes contracts and this includes blueprints. You're going to be running deception contracts. You're going to run all the way to the end, grab the item and exit, and then run the next one. You're not opening any of the doors, you're not picking up any of the items, you're just getting in, getting the unveil from Gianna, and getting out. Now, particularly, what I would suggest that you do very early on in the league is focus all of your alterations, all of your augments, all of your regals on getting a Regicide disguise kit, You'll find one eventually when you're running Heist, or you can buy one of these. You could probably even buy a finalized made one of these if you want to. And what you're really going to be looking for is +1 to level of all jobs for Heist, and 10% chance on completing a heist to generate an additional reveal with Wakano. As for all of the rest of the gear, in the basic Heist strategy, you can go watch my other video that I talked about earlier. You can get all the information from that. You're looking for like job speed and reducing raising of alert level, duplicate like basic currencies and things like that. These are all fine, like getting haste on some of your precise arrowheads and putting that on all of your rogues. But this piece of gear is more important than everything else. In the finalized version of the Heist strategy, none of the rest of this stuff matters. You get Gianna her Regicide disguise kit, you get everyone else like plus level of jobs and job speed if you really want to, and then you're just going to be getting haste here, and you don't really have to worry about anything else because we're not picking up any other currency. Now this includes when we're going to be running gems blueprints. If you want more information about this, I do have a full dedicated video on this particular strategy that I will link up in the top right corner now. You can watch that. It'll go step by step on how to do this exact strategy. But the whole idea is you've ran all these deception contracts, you've gotten in, you've gotten out, you've gotten all the way up to maximum Wakano unveils. You go and you buy a whole bunch of bulk unusual gems blueprints off of the trade website, off of TFT, wherever you want to get them. TFT is better. You buy a whole bunch of coins in bulk. The trade website is actually better for coins in bulk in my opinion, but you can get them from TFT as well. You're going to unveil only the actual target rooms, none of the little rooms. You unveil all of the target rooms, you go and you set up all of the rogues with just whichever rogue is best for that particular job, and then you run them back to back to back to back to back. That is all that you do. There's nothing else to this strategy. Once again, go watch the video that I talked about a moment ago. And then what do you do once you've completed all of this? You've gotten the heist build working, you farmed up a bunch of money. You literally play whatever you want. My personal like strategy and what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to do this strategy. I'm going to build up the gear for this character, get it all situated and running. I'm probably going to farm up a mage blood, and then I'm going to farm up like another half of a mage blood, and then start working on maybe one of the new skills or a build that I'm excited for the league. That is my current plan for league start. So I'm going to do exactly what I told you here. We're going to start off as a Poisonous Concoction Pathfinder, do the Endless Heist strategy early on, get enough money, level up to 85, transition into this build, start running contracts, start running blueprints, and make my way to however much currency I need. I did this strategy last league, and I ended up making all of these items in, I don't exactly remember how long it took me, but this was like 500 wings. I think it was like 130 blueprints or something like that. I made all of these items. I got like 40 primary grading lenses, 20 secondary grading lenses. This is like well over 100 something Exalt worth of items. I made this in about a day worth of trying, so this is probably a month into the league when I did this, but just keep an eye on like what gems are worth more, and if you really focus in, you're going to be able to make a lot of currency, and it's extremely consistent. Even if unusual gems aren't worth a lot early on in the league, you can just hold on to ones that you think are going to be worth a lot and run all of the other content instead. But these gem prices are going to start creeping up as people get more and more into the league, start wanting to run their builds with all these crazy alt qualities. And then we don't even know what like the alt quality of the new gems are going to do. Maybe there's some crazy alt qualities or something that's going to happen. You never really know, but it should be a lot of fun. And that is going to be it for the video. So this is going to be my league start strategy. It should be a lot of fun. It should be pretty interesting to do a full-on like dedicated heist build league start. If you're interested in how things end up early on in the league, make sure that you check me out at twitch.tv/bigducks, as I will be pushing through this strategy if you want to see how much currency I'm making, or maybe not making, because maybe everything blows up and nothing works, but I doubt that it will. Heist has always been pretty consistent. I want to give a shout out again to all of my patrons. Remember that if you do want some like early access content, behind the scenes kind of stuff, or maybe even some one-on-one help, you can find more information about that down in the description below at patreon.com/bigducks. So remember boys, if you're enjoying this content, make sure to give this video a like, subscribe to the YouTube channel, hit that notification bell to stay up to date with all the latest videos, and stay safe out there in Ray class, and I'll see you guys in 3.19 Lake of Kalandra.